Hello everyone, welcome to Classroom 2.0 Live for Saturday, October 15th. Today's topic is October Featured Teacher. Our special guest is Shelly Fryer. Your show hosts are Peggy George, I'm Lori Moffett, Tammy Moore, and Paula Noggle. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Peggy, who will now introduce Shelly and ask her the newbie question.
Well, welcome everyone. We're so glad you're here with us. Back in September 2010, that was about 6 years ago, we began a new feature on Classroom 2.0 Live that we call the Featured Teacher. We knew that there were so many teachers around the world that were doing amazing things with technology in their classrooms, and many of us had never had a chance to meet them. So we try to have a new featured teacher every month, and it has become one of our most popular shows. It's always so exciting to hear and see examples of the great teaching and learning that's taking place in classrooms. Well, in order for us to learn about teachers to invite to be presenters, we ask all of you to help us locate them by using our featured teacher nomination form that's found in every live binder. And we always share that link at the end of each show, too. You can nominate a colleague, someone in your professional learning network, anywhere in the world, and even you can nominate yourself. The wonderful thing about being a featured teacher is that you don't need to focus on a single topic, but you can share anything you are passionate about. Our participants love to hear your stories and to see examples of very specific ways you're using technology in your setting. You don't have to be a polished professional speaker. You just need to share your stories. So I hope you'll take a few minutes, maybe right after the show while it's fresh on your mind, and nominate an exemplary teacher so all of us can meet them. Well, today I am so proud to introduce our October featured teacher, Shelly Fryer, who I have come to know, respect, and admire for many years. Shelly is a teacher, an author, a speaker, and absolutely an advocate for children. She teaches 3rd and 4th grade students at Positive Tomorrows, which is Oklahoma's only elementary school that is specifically for homeless children. Shelly's passion is helping her students to love learning. She believes student learning in the classroom should be engaging. She encourages her students to make choices about how they learn best. And in addition, to help her students feel safe in their classroom family, Shelly is focused on helping students love learning at school. With over 20 years of teaching experience, Shelly has taught in many situations and has been in an iPad one-to-one classroom since 2013. She believes students need to understand their voices matter and can be shared with others beyond the walls of their classroom. She has an active classroom website, and she was also named PBS Digital Innovator in 2015 and was invited to speak at the National PBS Broadcasters Conference in Chicago last May. She's an Oklahoma Plus, A+ Schools Network Fellow, and she works really hard to bring arts integration strategies into her classroom. She's also a passionate advocate for maker education and provides many opportunities for her students to create, make, and learn in their classroom maker studio. So you can see why I am so excited that she's going to be sharing with us today. And so I'm going to ask Shelly our newbie question and let her take over. So Shelly, tell us, what exactly does Web 2.0 mean to you? And why do you use Web 2.0 tools in your classroom?
Well, thank you, Peggy, so much for that incredible introduction. Let's see, the Web 2.0. You know, it's funny, when I first saw that question, I had to ask my husband, what is Web 2.0? Because as I've been using the internet, I have always, coming back into the classroom, used it to not only get information, but to share information. And so I think when it talks about Web 2.0 as a teacher in my classroom, it's really engaging with others via the internet. So whether it's through my blog or my website or my students' different channels that we share from, it's really making the internet interactive. And I think that's what those tools encourage us to do. So here I am. Again, I'm Shelly Fryer. I'm really honored to be here on this Classroom 2.0 chat. I hope that my passion and my love for my students and my job shine through. And that's kind of why I chose this title, Helping My Students Love Learning. I think as a teacher and just as a person, that is exactly what I want to do in my classroom, is to help students love learning and to be curious and to want to seek out that knowledge on their own, not because I'm telling them to, but because I want them to do that in their own. And so that's kind of how I progressed with that title. And I am Shelly Fryer. I feel like I don't need to introduce myself because Peggy's done such a wonderful job. I do teach 3rd and 4th grade. It is a combination class, so I have some 3rd graders and some 4th graders. I'm at a very special school, Positive Tomorrows. I hope everybody takes an opportunity to go and look at our school webpage, positivetomorrows.org, because it is just an incredible school and a place to be. We are in Oklahoma City. We are actually a pre-K. We just started a pre-K this year, so we're pre-K through grade 5 now. And yes, our children at our school are homeless, and we work together as a school, not just to provide a quality education, but to help families get back on track, to help families to do that. You can connect with me on Twitter, on our classroom webpage, which I'll talk more about later, on my blog, which I blog fairly frequently, and then at my school, of course. Again, if you need contact with these slides, there is a QR code there and a shortened link if you want to have access to these actual slides. So today, what are we going to be doing? Well, what I really want to do is to give you a window into my classroom, to give you a window into what it is like to be in room 108. We're going to watch and discuss some of the media projects that my students have created. Yes, we are a one-to-one iPad school, but I want you to take a look at how I'm using those iPads. It's not just to plug students in. It's really about using the iPads to connect my students to the outside world. And I'm going to show you how we use those iPads every day and each week. Also, a big focus in my classroom is on creating and making and building, whether it's making things in our classroom, as the A+ said, integrating arts into our classroom, but it's also building relationships, and that's where I feel like I find my real connection is building relationships with my students in my classroom. And also we're going to discuss the value of being a connected teacher. We have 5 teachers in our building, extremely very small school, and so it's really important for me to be able to connect with teachers outside to build those relationships and to get ideas and be energized by what other people are also doing. So I'm going to start with this media project. This is my student Abigail, and I use a digital portfolio app, which I'll talk in depth about later, Seesaw. And so this is our digital portfolio that you're kind of seeing a picture of. And I use this in a variety of different ways. And some of those are very schooly. It's developing oral literacy skills. It's developing our writing skills. I use that to highlight those. But what is going deeper in this, especially involving the relationship, this was an activity that we did at the beginning of the school, and we had used the important book. And we were talking about the important things about our classroom. And so the students had a writing assignment, and they were supposed to write the important things about room 108. And so I'm going to let Abigail kind of give you an introduction to our classroom. So Peggy, if you would go ahead and play that video, that would be awesome.
The important thing about our class family is that we work hard and we don't give up. We make new friends. We are a family. We take care of each other. We know what is expected of us. We know how to follow the rules. We wait our turn to talk and play. We create things. We are in charge of our own learning. We play together. But the most important thing about our class family is that we work hard and we don't give up.
Well, I think Abigail introduced that very clearly. We are tenacious in our classroom, and we are a family. And as a teacher, I'm listening to the background going, what were they doing? But when I focus in on what Abigail is saying, then I hear we are tenacious. We don't give up. It's that grit that makes my students successful, and I want that grit to translate into what they're learning. And so a grit of learning and not giving up, because homeless students and students in deep poverty do experience so many experiences that are not positive, and so I need them to develop that positive grit for learning and education, which is critical for them. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey in education. I started teaching in Lubbock, Texas. I graduated, anyway, I'm not even going to go there. But I started teaching in Lubbock, Texas. And I taught for 3 years, and I loved it. But I was dissatisfied as a teacher, and I was young. Just to give you an example, I started teaching when I was 20 and then turned 21 that summer. So I was still right out of college very excited about getting out into the world. So I then applied for a job to teach overseas, and so with the Department of Defense. And so I got that, and I was, so this was my chance to go and see the world. So I went to Germany, and I taught school at an Army post with Army kids, and I absolutely loved it. It was being able to use my skills as a teacher, but also being able to be in a place that I loved being, and being adventurous and seeing the world. And my 3 years in Germany were very eye-opening. I happened to be there at a time when Desert Storm was starting, and so it was kind of the beginning of this new age that our country is in, and got to experience that. It was kind of a scary time, but a very pivotal time in my journey. So after 3 years, I went ahead and came back to Lubbock, Texas, and whoops, I don't want to go to that slide yet. And started teaching in a Title I school, and I taught 3rd grade, and then later transferred into a math lab situation. So we were a Title I school, teaching hands-on in a math lab. And that was awesome. I had an opportunity to teach very conceptually, to do a lot of project-based learning, to really focus on one subject, math, which is something that I love to teach. I eventually got married to my current husband, Wes Fryer, and we decided to go ahead and start a family. And so in 1997, I left the classroom when my oldest son was born. I stayed home to be a mom. Eventually, my youngest daughter, who was born in 2003, when she was 2 years old, we moved to Edmond, Oklahoma, and I went back to work. I didn't go back into teaching. By that time, I was kind of disillusioned with public education. That's about the time when all the standards-based things were coming out, and already the direction for teachers was changing. And so I went back into ministry. I still love kids, and I wanted to be involved with children. And so I went to work in preschool ministry, and I was in charge of preschool ministry birth through age 5, kindergarten, at our church. In the course of that, I got really involved and interested. I've always had a heart and a passion for lower socioeconomic families and children, and so I got involved in a ministry there. And I got connected with some young moms, young moms who were in their 20s who already had 3 and 4 children. And so through that experience and helping them become stable, I discovered a school called Positive Tomorrows. And I went on a tour there. And it was a school for homeless children. And I just fell in love with it. It was a happy place, yet it was a very emotional, sad place. And so in going through that tour, I discovered my passion again, my passion for children and my passion for teaching and my passion. And I told them at the end of the tour, I said, hey, if you ever have a job opening, please let me know. I would love to come back. And so that summer they did. They contacted me, and they had a 3rd and 4th grade opening. And so I very quickly saw this door open, and a renewed heart and a passion for education and for loving children and to loving learning again. And so I entered the classroom again in 2012, and I haven't looked back. I mean, it's really shaped who I am and what I do. And with that being said, when I left the classroom in 1997, remember, that was the time that computer labs were just getting started. We did have a computer lab and a computer teacher, but there was no technology in the classroom. I mean, that was before the time we even had a phone in our pocket. Phones were still connected via wires in the wall in our houses. And so I had used the computer before, mainly to do ERIC searches, I think, to do some research, but nothing like what technology in the classroom looks like today. So when I came back into education, and I was determined to be a teacher of the 21st century. I was determined that I was going to leave the way that I had done things in the past and learn this new, frontier of technology. And so I started doing my lesson plans in a Google Doc. At my school, we do not have textbooks. We do not have a set curriculum. We take the standards put out by national standards, and we teach from those. And so it's really up to the teacher to develop our curriculum and our lessons. And so I'm a very project-based learning teacher, probably not in the way that it as powerful as it could be, but that's kind of like the way that I go. And so this is just my lesson plans. This is in a Google Doc. I have a lot of links. I've used a lot of digital resources and connected with lesson plans and videos, and PBS was really big. It offered me a lot of resources, and so I began to accumulate and just really embed and integrate technology into my classroom. So I started out with a home base with my classroom webpage. I developed this right off the bat because I needed some place to put things. And so I created this webpage with the help of my husband. It's just a very simple Google site. But it became our home base, and my students needed that. We needed a place to start, and so this is our starting point. And when you walk into my classroom, this is where our classroom computers. I have 6 classroom computers, and this is where our home page is. Everything that we do in the classroom, we jump off from our classroom. This is where we have our classroom YouTube channel. This is where we have our Flickr pictures that I keep current. This is where we have our classroom radio show. This is really where everything begins. And so this is like the focus, and I drill into my kids every day. Where do we go if we want to find things? Where do we want to go if we want to listen to that radio show? Classroom.shellyfryer.com, because many of my students have the ability to go into the internet, whether it's on a device at McDonald's or at the library. And so this is really their lifeline to our classroom. This is an example of our YouTube channel. I'm looking at these projects. These are some of the projects that we did at the end of last year. We produced a lot of media in our classroom, and whether it's our iMovie trailers or our book creator project or Shadow Puppet EDU presentation, this is where we house it if it is in that video format. These are our passion projects. That would be a whole other workshop for us to discuss, because we did this at the end of the year and it was hugely successful. Our passion projects gave students during our Maker Studio time a time to dive in deep into something that they were truly interested in. I had a student that was really interested in DIY projects, and one student who taught herself to do ballet, and another student that taught herself how to choreograph a dance, and a student that taught himself how to play the guitar, you know, do art. They were drawing. So if you get a chance, go to our YouTube channel and take a look at some of these projects. They're truly amazing. Students had the responsibility of taking one of the presentations tools that we had used throughout the year and finding a way that they could highlight their learning and then present that learning to the classroom. And so this is a lot of the projects that came out of that. All right, so here's our second video. This is a paper slide video, and I don't do these projects just for the sake of the technology. I do these projects to highlight what's going on in our classroom. Gratitude happened to be one of our classroom character traits that we were working on, our school-wide character traits. And so I found this video, or this music by Empty Hands Music. It's called Grateful. And so we did a paper slide video. So as you're watching this, think about the students in my classroom. Think about the things that they might possibly struggle with. But also think about the opportunity that this gives them to have a voice with the world. Because I do share this publicly on our classroom YouTube channel. And so students have the ability to see this, to share it with their families, but also to have their voices be heard. And for them, if it's posted on YouTube, well, that's just like the rock star of all rock stars, is to be on YouTube. So Peggy, if you'll go ahead and play this video.
You're my life, you're my breath, you're a smile, you're my guest, you're the earth, you're the sun, you're the grass, you are love, you're my hands, you're a bug, you're my eyes, you're a hug, you're the light in the dark, you're the spark, you are fun, you're my mom, you're a water, you're the stars, you're my daughter, you're my friend to the end, you're my dreams, you're my father, you're the ants on the ground, the miracles that surround, I'm feeling it all around, the hemisphere, the cloud, you're my pain, you're my sorrow, you're my hope for tomorrow, you're the strength when I follow, you're the path that I follow, you're the blessings that exist, the small things that are blessed, the gift to realize that all that I am, all that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all, for it all. Grateful for it all. Every time I try to count the lessons that I learned, every time I turn around, the water that I learned, every time I think I found everything I'm looking for, to the sun and say stop to take a bow and keep moving forward and start looking towards your heart. It'll open all the doors and only then you'll start to hear the words. All that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I am grateful for it all. All that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful
Oh, those crazy kids. I'm so glad you had a chance to see them. And I wonder if you picked up, but surely you did, on the theme. They are grateful for their families. They do all yearn for a home, and sometimes that's all they have. My students don't have a lot of things. They don't have a lot of opportunities outside of school. They do have their families, and they love their families, and they are grateful for the experiences that they have. I don't think they know the sheer impact of those experiences yet, but it's a great opportunity for us to come in and give them some of the things that they don't have access to. And so we are grateful at our school at Positive Tomorrows. We are very blessed. So in our classroom, we are a family, and they talked about the families that they love at home and their moms and their siblings, but we're also a classroom family. We start out each day with a classroom meeting. It never fails, 9 o'clock, and we have a motto that we say, and we talk about how we're tenacious and how we come in the classroom ready to learn and ready to do the right thing. And it is our Positive Tomorrows commitment that every student leave our school at each day feeling successful. In our classroom meeting, we share our good news and our bad news. Students can freely share their experiences, their struggles with possibly a parent who is incarcerated, or possibly a parent who is struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, or just being excited when they finally get their Section 8 and they get a permanent place to live, a house, a home, new furniture. I don't know if you noticed, one of the slides says, "I'm happy for my birthday," because at Positive Tomorrows, every child in our school gets a birthday party unique just to them, with a theme and a cake and presents and everything. And that is hugely impactful, because many of my students don't have those kinds of opportunities. So we are a family, and that is number one in room 108. We also, are silly, and we like to be silly. We take the interest of the students to heart, and last year with the new Star Wars movie, we were kind of Star Wars crazy. This is just an example on, we just decided that we would declare Fridays Force Fridays, and then the students had lightsabers that they played with at recess, and we had special guests come and visit. I think there's even some green screen video that we took with these special guests, and some really intense lightsaber fights that we were able to make and do. But we also, at our school, we are very careful about sharing. We are very respectful about our students' privacy and confidentiality. And so we put that really as important. We do have some what we call red shirts who are not allowed to have their images be put into digital public view, and so we try to find creative ways to include them in some of these opportunities. I think in this picture you might see a student with a Darth Vader mask on. That is to protect his identity, because he is one of my red shirts, and I did not have permission to post his picture publicly. And so anyway, again, we take our commitment to students very seriously in order to do that. And sharing is what we do. Yes, we are a one-to-one iPad school, and that is a luxury that we use to the full extent. However, we use our iPads to make and create, and this is our Maker Studio. It's in a separate, outside of my classroom. It's in a building that we have access to, and you can see our green screen, and you can see the cardboard challenges, and it's a place where we make and create. And so in this, I think the students were creating a video of the school that they love, and I think this is really ironic. In my classroom, in our classroom, room 108, we ditched the desk. We got rid of, thanks to Aaron Klein, who really inspired me to take charge and get deep into some brain-based learning research, giving my students choice on where they learn best, and ditching those desks is important to me. So when the students started creating these videos about school, I was surprised when they immediately brought out the desk and started putting themselves into rows, and having the student that was acting out and the teacher that was me. And I said, seriously? Is that the school that you love? And is that the school you want to go to? And they're like, well, no. but to them, when they were playing school, that's immediately what they reverted back to. And so I challenged them, well, now that you've created the school that you don't want to go to, maybe you should create a school that you do want to go to. And I immediately saw them pushing those desks aside and gathering for morning meeting and playing games to have fun, but also to learn. And for me, that was very interesting. I don't know the psychology behind that, but this is our space. This is where students have the freedom to make and to create and to explore in our Maker Studio. So this is just some activities that we do in the Maker Studio. They love to do stop motion. They love to build and make and create with Legos. We use our iPads to take pictures, a lot of pictures, in order to document our learning and to create videos. There are some videos on my YouTube channel with pictures taken when we were doing our electricity unit, and right there I have a student working with the little bits. And we use those the green screen to highlight our vocabulary words. So we use our iPads in the Maker Studio to make and create, but also to document our learning inside the classroom. Now, apps are important, and being selective about the apps that we choose is very important to me. And so there's so much out there, and I have to be very choosy about the type of apps. We are a school. Many of my students are on a wide gambit of ability levels. I have students in 3rd grade that are working on kindergarten skills. I have students in 3rd and 4th grade that are working above grade level. So differentiating learning for my students is something that I have to stay focused on all the time. And also giving them choice of how they learn best. So these are a few of my favorite reading apps. Epic, I just started using this app this year, online books. It is free for teachers. Most of my students need reading supports. I need to choose apps that provide reading supports, a read to me feature. Many times, especially in 3rd grade, it's such a pivotal time. Some of my students are still struggling to learn to read, and what I want to begin transitioning them is reading to learn. And so sometimes their ability levels are very different from their interest level. And so all of these apps, Epic, which are online ebooks, Mayan, love Mayan, the ability that it has for students there's that read to me feature. In fact, it's a pretty incredible story. I had a student last year, and we were using Mayan a lot, and he had found a genre that he really enjoyed in a series of books. They were Zeke Meek books. And one day he was talking to me, and he said, well, that lady that reads to me in the afternoons? And I'm like, what lady that reads to you? You mean me when we're reading? No, that lady that reads to me in the afternoons on my iPad. And I'm like, what? She goes, in Mayan, that lady, he had automatically transferred that voice, that person that reads to him, into a person and made a connection with that. And that was just huge. I'm also a big fan of reading A to Z, and I use those a lot because of the variety of books that they provide, all of these, both fiction and nonfiction. Now, most of the apps that I use in my classroom are free. When you're a private nonprofit, money we use very carefully. However, there are a few apps that are paid apps, and a lot of the paid apps that we use because of the differentiation that it provides. It becomes adaptive. These are adaptive apps. So Lexia Core 5 is an adaptive reading app. Students take a pre-test. It allows students to work at their core level. Like those students that, for whatever reason, probably for my students, is that they weren't in school, they were transitioning. I have some students that have been in 9 or 10 schools in the past 2 years, and so there's a lot of gaps in their learning. Lexia helps them fill in the gaps of some of that learning. Dreambox as well. We started using Dreambox last year. It's an adaptive math app. It teaches conceptually the way that I would like to teach conceptually, and so it builds on the concepts of learning and math skills, and it is adaptive as well. Another favorite that I'm going to tell you more about is Newsomatic. Newsomatic, and I do purchase the EDU version. They do have a free version, but I purchased the EDU version because it allows me to set a different Lexile level for each one of my students, and it does also have the built-in reading supports with all of this. So a little more about Newsomatic and why I'm so passionate about it. One of my goals to help students love learning is to learn about the world around them and the world outside of the world that they exist in, outside the walls of our classroom and on a national and a global level. This is Newsomatic is a daily newspaper for kids. They produce a daily newspaper 365 days a year. It is for primary students, well, primary elementary, probably through 6th grade, maybe 7th grade, as low as kindergarten. Our kindergartners also use this because it does have a read to me feature. And it really talks about, and it's developmentally appropriate. These articles aren't just adult articles that are dummied down. They are actual articles specifically chosen and developmentally appropriate for kids. And if you'll notice on there, there's an article about the creepy clowns. I don't know if you've had the good fortune to hear about some of that. I had to ask my teenage daughters what was going on. But there was this kind of craze that went through, and at this time of year, maybe because it's Halloween, but that they were afraid, and the editor said he kept getting questions from kids because they were worried about that. Newsomatic has a child psychologist that works with them, but anyway, telling kids it's okay, this is not real, this is just a hoax. And then also you'll see just the variety of articles from Ethiopia to celebrating Spanish, a time of forgiveness. So it really is an exposure. The way that my favorite way of using it, it gives my students a way to interact. I think it's really important, as Peggy said in the beginning when she was introducing me, that my students do matter, and it is important that they know that their voices are being heard. And so we have a lot of visitors that come visit our school and visit our classroom, and one day last year, Governor Mary Fallin came to visit our classroom. I'll tell you more about our classroom radio show, but for that episode, we had developed some questions, and we wanted to interview Governor Fallin, and so we created a classroom radio show on this, and we asked her some questions. And Newsomatic has a section in their newspapers that's called Real Jobs, and so I contacted them via Twitter. Again, it's very important to be a connected educator. You just kind of throw things out there. So on Twitter, I connected and I said, hey, we've got the governor coming to visit. We've interviewed her. Would this be, would you be interested in this article for your Real Jobs? And of course they said, yes, that would be great. And so they took the audio from our classroom radio show and our questions and then came up with this article. So our students, this was published in a newspaper that is nationally or internationally read all over the world. And so they truly did have a voice. So we do use our apps for making and creating and making those connections. Opinion, when I talk about my classroom radio show, Opinion is the app. It's Opinion Podcasts. It allows me to record and to edit and to share right on my phone. So I use it as an app on my phone, and that's what we use to produce our classroom radio show. DoInk, you saw the green screen in our Maker Studio. This is an app that is very popular in our classroom. We create green screen videos. It's one of the simplest green screen apps that I've used, and right now I'm learning how to do animations, and they've created some great tutorials on that as well. Coma. I can't tell you how much fun my students have had with this. This is new to us. A friend of mine, Ann Beck, told me about it this summer. So Coma is a very easy, even your preschoolers, kindergartners could use this to create stop motion movies. My students like to use Play-Doh with this, but they've also done it with Legos and other variety of things in our classrooms. So those are apps for making some fun media. This is a project that we created using the green screen app, Doing. Again, we don't create these projects just for the sake of the technology. We create these projects out of things that are going on in our classroom. We happen to be talking about Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. The students wrote their own dream speeches. Their assignment was to, what were their dreams for themselves, what was their dream for their families, and what was their dream for our world, for our school outside. And so this is just a shortened version. If you want to see the full versions of these, you can go to our YouTube channel, where they're each individually published, but this is kind of a shortened one. These are my students sharing their dreams, their I Have a Dream speeches from the Lincoln Memorial via the green screen.
This is room 108, I Have a Dream speeches. I have a dream that one day my family will live in Oklahoma so we can see each other often. I have a dream that one day my family will be free from what they look like and focus on what they are like inside. I have a dream that no one makes fun of each other person's skin color. We should accept all people for who they are inside.
I have a dream that one day my older brother and my older sister will graduate from high school and go on to college. With a good education, they should both be able to get good jobs.
I have a dream that one day my family will become brothers and sisters and husbands and wives. I have a dream that I will become a loving and caring dad that teaches my kids not to get mad.
I have a dream that one day my family will live in a peaceful house. We will have a peaceful dinner together. We will live peacefully and not fight. My dream is for us to be happy.
I have a dream that one day my family will one day join hands and go to church so we can learn about Jesus, God, and Martin Luther King Jr. When we learn these things, we can do nice things for each other, like helping each other when they need it.
I have a dream that one day my family will get a new house. If we'd be great if my sister could get college from high school and go to college. After college, she could then get a great job.
I have a dream that one day my family will have peace forever and learn to get along. When I am a dad, I will teach my children not to fight with their fists, but use words.
I have a dream that one day my family will live in peace and get along with one another. We could enjoy playing together and having lots of fun. It is my dream that my family will come together and be nice to each other.
I have a dream that one day our world would not be racist, but love their lives. I dream that our government will treat people equally.
Well, I really think those videos are powerful, especially in the time of year that we are now. Many of you noticed that so many of my students dreamed for peace. I think most of you probably realize that students in deep poverty experience a lot of difficult situations and traumatic situations, and many students who are in our classrooms these days, as we're trying to teach them, the rules or whatever subject we're teaching, are coming from some very violent backgrounds, and peace is something that they yearn for. Also, a lot of situations of domestic violence. So it's sometimes even hard for me to hear those stories again. But we have powerful media that we have created in our classroom. We have videos, we have books, we have stop motion movies, and one thing I really struggled with in the beginning was, what do I do with all of this? I started my YouTube channel so at least I had a place to publicly show that and our pictures. But then I learned about this digital portfolio app, Seesaw, and I really feel like this is the one app, and it allows me itself to do a lot of these neat things, but just as a place to put the media that we're creating was huge and revolutionary. So this is our digital portfolio for this year. This is where we put all of our media. We currently have iPad 2s. We really need to update iPad 2s, and they don't have a lot of memory. And so a lot of our video projects were taking up so much space, and I was having to go to all different kinds of apps on the students' individual apps just to respond and give them feedback on their projects. And then I discovered Seesaw. Seesaw, all of our projects we save on the camera roll. It's kind of our flow, and then we put them in our digital portfolio when they're finished. It allows students to put them in a folder according to the assignment that it was done. This happens to be in our Maker Studio and Kitchen Chemistry, which we spent a lot of time with at the beginning of the year. They give it a title, and then it allows them to audio record. Again, a lot of my students struggle with words, and it has a notes app where we're typing out, but that audio level allows them to show me what they know without the barrier of trying to put it into words. And so writing is very important, and we do a lot of writing in our classroom, but for a student to be able to tell me and share with me what they know, I get a much better sense of that reflection piece. We take a lot of pictures. This is our Maker Studio, again, in Kitchen Chemistry. These are some of the centers that we do. This was done with an app called Pick Collage, Pick Kids, where we, again, students show me what they know, and these projects are put into. So it's really important to have a way when we're doing projects and things in the classroom to record that, because a lot of times those are the things that don't translate on paper very well. However, it's not just about doing just plain media projects. It's also about, we were studying Dr. Seuss in the beginning of the year, and this is a poem in our poetry folder that they were doing as a fluency example. And so they had to read this. So they took a picture of the poem, and then they had to read it into it. And to hear those, especially with my low readers who practiced and practiced and practiced, making it sound like talk, and then to have that to show their parents. This is another example of how we used, you can see in the pictures surrounding it, who's this? This is Amicus, that we were doing the scientific process. We were practicing that while we were making oobleck from the Dr. Seuss book. And so again, we're taking pictures. I don't know if she got home with her science journal, but I have a record of it to show her mother if she asked. This is another example of a media project. This is coding has been a big part of our classroom. I love coding because it works on our computational thinking skills and sequencing skills. If something happens, then something happens. And also students are learning to create their own games and their own stories and not just consuming games and stories. This is an app that I've used, PBS Kids, Scratch Junior. These are some of the coding apps that are my favorites. I actually teach lessons in PBS Scratch Kids in Scratch Junior. I love using this app. It's based on the Scratch app out of MIT. It's the exact same app, except PBS Kids uses all the familiar characters that students already can identify with. And so it starts out by just allowing them to create and make using a lot of familiar characters they already know. Students in my classroom love the Foos. It's put out by CodeSpark. It has a series of tutorials that takes them through a coding process. And also we love our Dash and Dot. They're actual little robots that we use. We use Blockly for Dash and Dot to code them. They are kind of our classroom pets, which are awesome because they don't require me to bring them home over our classroom holidays or feeding them. So this is a project that a student will go back to Abigail. She's the one that introduced our classroom to you in the beginning of the presentation. So we had already been through a series of several coding lessons using how to create animations and how to do touch games and how to use the audio voices. So this is a game that she created for her kindergarten buddy, which is next door. And so Abigail is doing this game with her kindergarten buddy, and anyway, just take a look at it. This is pretty cool.
It says, tap the red fish. So which of those is red? Good job! You found the red fish. And then now it says tap the number 1. That one's kind of hard to tap. Just tap it again. Good job! You found 1. Now it says tap the triangle. Good job! You found the triangle.
I don't know if any of you have done much coding, but there were a lot of skills that went into that code. She had to code it multi-levels. She had to use code all of the different, I wish the student had actually done something wrong because she had to code the negative feedback. So she had to know the student who was coding it, Abigail, how to not only code the positives, but to code if something were present that was wrong. Anyway, a great example of students using that PBS Kids Scratch Junior app. I had an opportunity to do a PBS Kids Scratch Junior coding, and if you'll go to my classroom webpage, there are some resources down at the bottom that if you're interested, I created a series of activities, the simple animation, the moving game, and all of these are available. Please take advantage of those and use those. Really, one of the things that has been most powerful in my classroom, especially for helping students develop their voice, is our classroom radio show. Like I said, I described earlier that we start each day with a morning meeting. Well, usually we produce our classroom radio shows at the end of the day in our closing meetings. We usually try to get at least one out a week. Sometimes if we've had something exciting happen, we'll do more. But this is student created. And the floor there, and it's simple. It's nothing complex. It's very simple. Students talk about what we've done. We try to use this time to be reflective, to think back on our day. What did we learn that was exciting? What happened that day that we need to reinforce? And so we practice our character traits. We talk about that. We interview visitors, or we interview other staff that teach in our building. We practice our social skills. So we're learning to listen. We're learning to be fluent. We're learning to come up with answers to questions. We practice our oral fluency. Students come up with a question for the day, but they also have to learn how to answer that question. Is it a good question? Can we get multiple answers from that? Are each one of our students going to have a voice? Are they going to be able to share? It promotes our writing skills. This happens to be a more complex radio show. This was an end of the year one where students were working together in groups, coming up with questions that they wanted to know from their classroom, from their classmates. Students have to be able to elaborate. They have to be able to answer the question, but also to tell why and because. All of our classroom radio shows are on our classroom webpage. Again, it's our home base. It is room 108. These are all the, these are the radio shows that we've started this year. You'll also see the radio shows from last year's room 108. And you can look just at all of the questions that we've answered, kind of what's going on in our classroom at the time. All of the radio shows, and I think there's a presentation in my webpage too, if you want to look at some of my presentation slides on that. I've done that a few times. So, all right. Wow, that's a lot of information. I could have dived in deep into a lot of things. But just to kind of think about, again, going back to the title of this presentation, helping my students love learning, giving my students choice in the classroom. I I heard a speaker, Angela Myers, and she uses the hashtag #YouMatter. And I think that's what I want my students to know in the classroom, is that they do matter. And I tell my students that I love them every day, and I try not to forget to tell them that I love them. This is kind of a neat, we talked about being connected educators. Okay, so we have first grade students. We were on the playground, and the teacher from the first and second grade brought me in this leaf. And she said, my students found this leaf on the playground, and they were really curious as to what those little things were. They were studying caterpillars, and so all of the kids thought that maybe they were caterpillars. But the teacher brought it to, she said, I know you like to do science in your classroom, and I know you know how, can you look at that? I was like, well, geez, we're doing kitchen chemistry right now. I don't know anything about entomology. And so I immediately Googled, and I Googled entomology Twitter. And I got a few people that I could contact. So I contacted about 3 people, and I said, here's a picture. Does anybody know what this is? My students are curious. And so, gosh, it was maybe 30 minutes later, I had all kinds of people, entomologists, asking entomologists, there's a Twitter on that, telling me, well, I think it's this. Have the kids dissect it. And so that's what my kids did. They got out the microscopes and they dissected these little nodes on the leaf, and they became curious about what these were. And one of the people that we had tweeted said, well, it looks like maybe a gall wasp. And oh yeah, so the kids, oh yeah, they think they see some. I don't really know if they saw anything, but they thought they did. And so they learned all about me, looked up what gall wasps are, and the kids are like, oh yeah, we have wasps all over the playground. And so I saw this just organic enthusiasm oozing out of the students. And so after they learned about what these things were, they went over to the first and second grade class and asked the teacher if they could present it to her classroom. And so they took their microscopes over there and they said, yeah, we found out, we asked an entomologist, it's a scientist who studies bugs. I mean, they learned all of this in the course of that morning. Of course, it didn't have anything to do with my fancy lesson plans that I had created, but helping students love learning, helping students be curious, helping students learn to ask questions and be engaged. So helping my students love learning, #YouMatter, and helping them find voice. So anyway, I could go on, but I'm going to stop there. I think I'm going a little over my time. Does anybody have any questions? I'd be glad to answer a few questions.
I did capture a couple questions, Shelly, and the first one was, if the children are no longer homeless, do they have to enroll elsewhere? I think Wes eventually did answer that.
No, when students come to our school, we keep them. We don't ever just send them off on their way. We have a whole series of family support people. So once a student is in our school, we try to keep them there for as long as we can, even when they get their permanent supportive housing or in transitional housing. They do remain with us as long as they're in our transportation zone, or that somebody can bring them to us. But oftentimes students transition into another school, and that's kind of our goal for them. We are not a permanent solution. We are not a school where they will stay with us for years on end. We are a school that tries to give them a soft place to land, tries to get their family in a supportive situation so that they can be successful back in public school systems.
That's so wonderful. The other questions that I captured were answered either by other participants in the room or as we went along. So does anyone else have any questions for Shelly? Go ahead and type in the chat. I see some typing.
Again, I would encourage everybody to take a look at our our school's webpage if you want to find out more about us.
Paula's asking, can her 4th graders do a Google Hangout with your class, Shelly?
Oh, we would love that. That is always one of my goals, is to do more of that, because we do blog, and I tried to hook up my kids with other classrooms to get authentic feedback from, and that's always a struggle. So we would love to do a Google Hangout. And if you know anything about bats, I'm also trying to reach people that are enthusiastic about bats, because we're trying to decide, are bats friends or foes? So we'd love to talk about what we're learning.
So she says, let's plan a mystery location call in the next few weeks, Shelly.
That sounds awesome.
You and Paula.
I will definitely give a big hug to all of my kids. I've missed them. I've been on fall break for this past week. They've been in fall break camp. So on Monday morning, I anticipate a lot of hugs.
I think we'll end there. Again, thanks so much for sharing, Shelly, and Peggy will tell us about what's coming up next.
Thank you so much, Shelly. We are all so excited not only to hear about the ideas and the tools, but to hear your passion as you describe these things going on in your classroom. Very, very exciting. Well, I'm going to wrap this up really quickly because I know we're over time, but I hope you'll come back and join us every week that we have a show. Now, just be aware that next week we have no show because we all want to go to the Discovery Education Fall Virtual Conference. And that link is in our live binder, and it is totally free, so take advantage of that. And then on October 29th, Matt Buchanan is going to be joining us to tell us all about a rubric that he created as a Chrome add-on called Orange Slice. You're going to love it. Craig Yen is going to join us on November 5th to talk about becoming a connected educator. And I know that's going to be so interesting. November 12th, we're gearing up for Hour of Code Week, and Alexis Cobo is going to come and share about the Hour of Code and computational thinking. Then on November 19th, we're going to learn about PikaPack. That is a character education program for younger students, pre-K through grade 3. Brand new to me, and I can't wait to learn more about it. And then we won't have a show on November 26th because that is Thanksgiving weekend in the U.S. So with that, I'm just going to advance to the link. There's the reminder about the Fall Virtual Con. And there is another great mini conference tomorrow, most of the day, on digital writing. If you haven't been to the first two, all the recordings are there, but you can also join us tomorrow for an awesome day of presentations about digital writing.
The Learning Revolution Project is Steve Hargadon's latest. He's gathered all his resources in one place, including host your own webinar. As you exit the session, the survey should open up in your browser, or you can take the link in the chat, or it's in the Resources tab in the Live Binder. At the bottom of the survey, you can request a professional development certificate, and this prints your name thanks to Patty Ruffing. She sends them out. Please put a personal email address to receive this, rather than a school email address. Schools will block these from getting to you. Special thanks to Shelly Fryer, our special guest, to Steve Hargadon, founder of Classroom 2.0, Teacher 2.0, Future of Education and the Learning Revolution, to Blackboard Collaborate for our webinar platform, and to everyone who participated in this show today. Thanks so much for coming.